But yeah, overall, I think Dragon Quest XI was a solid ass game. Like I said, I think it kind of runs out of steam by the end. Act 3 is a cool idea, and it's for as far as a post game goes, it's pretty neat. There's a lot of stuff there. If you don't think of it as a post game, it's a little lacking, and I would argue it's not really a proper post game when you have stuff like that still available. So a little too much reuse shit. It kind of, the final boss obviously is a little underwhelming because I was juiced, but also in part because there's just one phase. You've kind of, I mean, they add all, like, a whole new set of 400 enemies. They're just all kind of retreads of the same shit, slightly statted different. So, you don't go through almost anything new. So that kind of sucked there. I think you definitely lose a lot of steam by the end of the game. I think the first retread of all the zones after Mordegon takes over the worlds was good because there's new stories, new areas to go to. It's only once, right? So you get to see, what happened in those areas since the apocalypse. But a third time, you're like, eh. Especially when they don't add anything really special to them. It's like, eh. There's a few good parts like Erdrick's kind of closer with Jasper, but other than that, there's not a whole lot going on there. They put such long breaks in between these songs, but it's like 10 seconds. It's like, we got it. Let me turn it down a bit. Yeah, there's a lot more we could go into, which I've kind of gone into while playing. But I guess the long and short of it is better presentation, bad music, a battle system that's taken, I think, the Dragon Quest formula probably to its peak. But it needs a bigger shakeup, and they need to be more willing to change that same buff heal system they've been doing forever and kind of lean into stuff like the Eric shit, the late game Erdrick and Sylvano, or not Erdrick, Hendrik and Sylvano type of stuff. Take that to a greater level. And if not do that, kind of go way harder into the customizable kind of class thing maybe that 6 had. 6 didn't do it well, but it was, the idea of it, or 9, right? Just go somewhere with that. Probably, a more fluid combat system that has a lot more swapping in unique elements, different party members, and having a multitude of different, like, fun strats and shit. But the more you move away from tradition, the less it is Dragon Quest, so it's one of those places I don't know if they will ever change that in a huge way. Apparently they're gonna maybe do it next time, but I don't know. We'll see when we get to it, right? I don't think they'll go too hard. I think they have more than every right to do it at this point. 11 games in, but this is like the traditional JRPG baby, so they probably don't want to mess with it too much. Yeah, we'll find out. So, like I said, I liked the difficulty options there. I definitely think Draconian's the way to go. But honestly, if you're like not looking to ever get stopped and you just kind of want to enjoy the romp, that's what a lot of the Dragon Quest games are. They'll usually have a mid-game cock block and an end game with the final boss. Otherwise, they're kind of just comfy. I get not wanting to do hard mode. Like I said, it makes a lot of the systems like the equipment and the forging and stuff feel more rewarding. It makes all the exploration feel more rewarding because when you find stuff, it's like, oh yeah, this is going to help. Because there's a challenge I have to overcome. But the combat's not so crazy that it feels super great to like get through a tough fight. I think it's more rewarding on the back end, like I said, with equipment and stuff. The actual strategies in fights, I'm just like, just die. Oh yeah, I mean, I might just been really over-prepared. I took my sweet-ass time. I took my sweet time, I upgraded a lot. I think that's just something that hard mode makes you feel like you need to do, but it might not be actually necessary. It definitely changes the way you're gonna play. Yeah, being under-leveled is definitely the big one. I mean, I usually don't like to grind in games, but with Dragon Quest I've been accustomed to grinding for the finale. So I did that for both finales in this, so that definitely helped. Because like I said, I like in stuff, when we did like Bug Fables or SMT or something, like strategizing to win. It's really fun. Failing and strategizing to win. It can be entertaining. But in Dragon Quest, I tend to not care. Because it feels a lot of the time like it's a bit more heavy on the RNG. Like I said, when the old school stuff, the turn ordering, whether the boss is gonna like wipe all your buffs, whether he's gonna wipe your tension and stuff like that. It's just more annoying. So it's like, what's the most consistent way to get past the boss in a system like that? That's just full of randomness. Well, just outstat the boss, right? There's a lot of stuff in the old Dragon Quest where, you know, if you don't have an AoE heal, you're just not gonna win, right? So this didn't have as much of that, but there is a lot more strategy you can put in here, but it's still, you know, got a lot of that same undercurrents, I suppose. That makes sense. What else though? Yes, like I said, story's nothing special. If anything, it's kind of whatever. It's full of potholes, but the characters are good. The characterization, I think they're best really after you first meet them. I think some like Hendrik get better. Some like Sylvander stay good, but kind of fall off a bit. And others like Veronica and Serena kind of just stay. Eric kind of just stays. He gets a little bit, but they're pretty well realized at the beginning, and they stay pretty entertaining personalities as you go. Rad probably gets a lot more. I think the middle chapters they added a lot of character to the characters. Other than that, though, stuff like Jade, she's pretty shit. She doesn't have much of anything. She was probably the worst character. Sadly, she was just kind of all sex appeal. Like, she really didn't have much going on there other than being the princess. Despite having a cool design. But yeah, I'd rather, I guess, have one whatever character in an emotionless MC than all the characters be shit. So at least most of them were interesting. They're just not in service of much of a story. Even as far as generic evil bad guys spawn stories, it's still pretty whatever. Which is fine, but then the episodic stories aren't that great either. If you want like generic story with cool episodic stories, you go like 7, right? This doesn't, I feel like, hit any of those strides at their peak, but it's still entertaining. I didn't like hate the story, just it wasn't, like I said, going God mode. What else? I was kind of doing a recap. Oh, quality of life in this is the best for sure. A lot of like speed ups in battle, being able to see all this information, forging, being able to buy stuff whenever you want for the forge, being able to see every enemy in the list, how you get their shit, where they are, every enemy in the zone you're in, every sparkly bit, where to find sparkly bits in the world, where you're missing passwords. I mean, it's almost to the extent maybe they give you too much info, but you never need to go check like a wiki or anything. Thank God. I mean, I still checked a few things just to kind of get an idea of whether I'd be able to finish up for the 15th and what all was coming there. But other than that, they give you plenty of just that kind of bonus information, you know, stats and models to mess with. And that's pretty good there. I do kind of wish maybe they'd give you some more numbers for, you know, how much like defense you're gonna get from like your buffs and stuff. They used to, although it's still a little vague. Like, it'd be cool if it was like kind of percentages or something, but they give you enough information you can make decisions based off it. That's what's good about more information in combat, is you can strategize. The more you know about the fight, the more you can strategize around the fight. I mean, I guess if you know it to the level where you could just solve the combat, then that's an issue, but I think if you've got a combat system with enough options, then it's not an issue, because you have to create the strategy. The less options you have and the more info you give, the more just, you know, oh, I have to do this turn, you know, there's not an option, because it's the only thing, right? Like, I have to heal this turn, you know? That kind of thing. If you have options other than maybe healing, you know, like forbearance or some shit, like, that's cool. But this is not the kind of series where you have an option to not heal a turn, right? You have to heal, right? You're gonna have to heal. That's most JRPGs, but This one's that way to an extreme. I don't see Dragon Quest bucking any kind of trends like that, right? That would be some revolutionary shit, man. Yeah, I think that's about it. Like I said, visually it's good. It's slightly downgraded from the original. I wish they would still have the original's graphics with all the new content. But a lot of content. A lot of bonus shit like the 2D mode, like I said, quality of life. I think the biggest negative is, like I said earlier, the music. It's just... It's overused. It's not fitting. Like the main world theme is so unfitting for some of the dark shit that happens in the story. The towns don't really get unique themes after the first couple. Like the Maiden Metal place gets one. It even gets a night theme. The Japanese place gets one, and then they kind of just stop. And they all use the same bullshit you've been hearing from all the other Dragon Quest games. There's no cool flavor like the Dragon Quest IX battle music or anything like some of the more MIDI shit had. It's just, it gets really old. For how long the game is, for how it goes into new acts, and then it doesn't change the music ever. It never changes the battle music. The overworld music, it changes once, and then it goes back, I think. It's just a shame. They included Dragon Quest VIII music. I just left that on the whole time. It felt like it fit more, and I'd already heard that for a fucking 50 to 80 hour game. So it's like, fucking hell, man. You know, I was already sick of that after 8, but, you know, it's still better than 11, so... I'll be looking forward to them having a new person doing the music. I hope they throw a little bit more flavor in it, and don't just try to stick to, you know, the old composers' shit like way too tightly to just try to, because they don't want to fuck up, you know, the Dragon Quest feel. But it's definitely one of the worst Dragon Quest soundtracks. It was a shame. I'm pretty big on music, and music elevating the games, but I mean, it had a nice symphonic sound to it, you know, which I always think does fit Dragon Quest kind of big, epic adventure feel. But I'd be down with them mixing it up. Whatever. I keep going all day on this fucking game, but fuck it, I've had enough. It's a good game. If you guys want to talk more about 11, bring up some stuff, we can keep chatting. But let's get going on the tier list. And move into other stuff. We just go down the list from 1 to... Maybe just do them in order. I don't know, I'll put 1 here. We'll adjust. I really don't know how I would rate a lot of these, because they're very similar. I guess we could get into Dragon Quest as a series once we're while we're going through this. They don't change a lot to the series. It's not like every game is exactly the same, but they have a very similar structure and feel of gameplay and tone, and a lot of similar events. They're obviously not exactly the same. Not like just an asset flip or something. But it makes it hard to actually kind of put these in a more distinct tier list. You give me FF, you know, mainline, I could probably do it simple enough. Which we could do. I've played all the mainline. Maybe we'll do that for shits one of these days as well. Maybe after Crisis Core. But yeah, Dragon Quest, it's a lot harder. There's a lot of minor things that make some of these better or worse. But anyways, Dragon Quest 1, I liked that this game was a single protagonist. There was one character. It was kind of novel to today's standards even. It's kind of like Ys in that every upgrade and every level feels huge. So that, I mean, that's another thing about games nowadays, is a lot of levels and equipment, you feel it, but it doesn't feel big. When you find, like, you want to be like, whoa, I got this epic piece of equipment, whoa, I got a level, and I'm like significantly better. I think that's kind of been lost over time, to have all these micro upgrades you don't feel. Maybe it's just easier for balance. Maybe it's less frustrating because then you don't have to, you know, grind or something to move on. But I think that was rewarding in Dragon Quest 1. You had to write a lot of notes, actually explore all the towns. It was like a 20 to 30 hour game. It's pretty tight, if that. I mean, it might even be less than that. It was a very short game. I think it was sub 20. I might beat it in a day. I don't even remember actually. How long was this shit, man? Let me look it up. This one was really short. And I think I underestimated how short it was. Yeah, 100%'s like 9 to 12 hours. So yeah, I probably beat it in a day. Knowing me, maybe part of another. But that was kind of neat, right? You get this monstrosity that's like 180 hours, but the original's like 10 to 20. So every time you get a level, you know, you walk out of the door and you can't even take like a couple goblins, and then you start being able to take them, and then you're styling on them, and then you keep moving through new areas. And since the world's not huge, every area you go is like pretty significant. Reject blood, dude. Yeah, bring us back to pure RPG. So I think that's a cool thing about it. When you use return, you always go back to the main castle, right? So you always have to run from the castle to everywhere in the world. But it's a pretty tight world, so it's not a big deal. It's got contextual music that's really interesting. I did play the SNES version. You'd be going through a dungeon, and the lower you got in the dungeon, the more creepy and weird the music started getting. And it was really neat, especially for the first game in the series. It's got more style and flavor there than a lot of the games in the series. Musically, it's better than this one, I would say. I mean, objectively, 11's is better, but 1's is way more impressive. What it's doing for its age, and a little bits of soul they throw into it. It does have more proper resource management and stuff like that. Buying herbs and shit is pretty fun because you actually are going to need them to be able to get through stuff. You don't have like a bunch of healers or anything, right? So, it's a pretty tight experience. It's not super hard, but it's not super easy. The last run through, you're gonna have to rerun through a lot of the chunks of the game and grind a little bit, but I like 1 a lot more than I expected. Same with like Final Fantasy 1. There's something about, the simplicity of those games. Just tight worlds, tight leveling, good feeling sense of upgrades, and a pretty decent pace. Obviously they got some quality of life issues, but they don't have so many features that quality of life is going to be a huge issue, right? They don't have a forge system for you to worry about it taking an hour like an 8, right? So I like 1 for that. New moves, yeah. And even in 1 you have cool item shit, right? In Final Fantasy 1. Yeah, I think that's another thing about 11 that is lacking a bit. Is that the old games, even like as far back as I would say 7, 8 doesn't do it as much. It takes a while, but even in like 7, right? You're going to somewhere new every almost few hours. 11, you can spend a lot of time putzing around. You're still going to new shit, but a lot of the areas don't feel hugely crazy, right? For 7, it was a lot of like totally fresh feeling shit. Finally free, yep. Yeah, boat, marine ship, yeah, exactly. You're getting like canoes and old Final Fantasy and shit, new stuff all the time. I don't remember if 1 had a lot of vehicles, Dragon Quest 1, but they definitely put more in as the series goes, and it's the same principle, yeah. You're not spending overly long in one area. And I'm fine with you stopping for a little bit longer to kind of flesh out like a story or a visual style in the area. You don't want to just make a bunch of assets and then be gone in 30 minutes or something. But yeah, I think keeping that beat, especially for a game that's more focused on gameplay, is important. And I think stuff like 8 and 11 at times can be a little too slow there. 8 tries to get by on sheer scale and grandeur and shit, but 11 tries to get by on just raw amount of content, so. I definitely think that's a good point for sure. It's just more concise, just packing quality stuff together. And I think that's where the argument about games that are just longer, have more content, are better is so bullshit. Think about it this way, it's something I've been thinking about. There's always, the amount of good games in the world is just always increasing, right? You only have so much time to beat everything. Like, you're never gonna beat everything, so it's like, I don't know why we would value, like, sheer amount of hours and stuff over just, like, quality. I'm not saying games should be short. I'm down for a really long game. There's a feeling you can only get from, like, something that's a long journey and progression. But when you could cut out some bullshit, it's like, or just, you know, put together just all the exciting shit. It's like sometimes that's probably objectively worth going for. But I think you could argue stuff like 8 and 11 kind of, especially 8 for me, kind of, they'll flub around a little too much. I think, you know, in Act 3 here in Dragon Quest 11, some of the other stuff in Act 2, it's like, okay, you know, what would be better here? A new area with, like, cool stuff to see for 5 hours, or going through the same area with, like, a slight, you know, new story? It's like, well, a new area would always be better, right? I don't think anybody would argue that. You can make an old area really good, you just gotta really nail it. But if you're not gonna go that extra mile, it's like, it's easier to probably do something new. Obviously, money-wise and stuff, you can't always do that, but I think just that general principle that on an adventure you want to see lots of new shit, probably something that maybe 11 could borrow from a little bit. Like I said, I still think it's great, but it's kind of the Elden Ring issue. By the very end, after doing everything, you know, some of those little cracks show. Anyways, yeah, Dragon Quest 1, it's just, I'd recommend playing it. Yeah, it's gonna have some old school RPG shit that might be annoying. You know, maybe it's gonna, you know, too many random fights for you. It's gonna take too long, but it's a 10-hour game. You can't say it's got too many random fights. Alright? When Dragon Quest 11's 180 hours, like, it's just not that bad. Yeah, fighting on the field is more satisfying, having that choice. But, I would recommend Dragon Quest 1 to people. I'd almost want to put it up higher, but we'll see as we go. Oh, here's a fast S tier list. Let's take a peek real quick. Yeah, Rocket Slide, dude. Triple S. I gotta play it. This is 5. What is this? 8. Okay, 8. 9. 1. I didn't know you even did 1. I thought you were talking more about Final Fantasy. 4. Kiefer did. Kiefer. I kept calling him fucking Hugo for some reason during 11. Oh wait, you guys can't see his whole list here. That's the Kiefer list. My bad. This is Fasto's tier list. I would say this is a base tier list. I respect this. I would put 9 under 4. Kiefer list. Always good. But yeah. I was a big fan of 1. Call that maybe a personal thing. But I just, you know, that simplicity, the feeling of good upgrades, the pace, it's just a clean, it's just clean gameplay, man. It's just clean RPG. Writing notes down to figure out where hidden shit is. To some people might be arcane and annoying because you gotta use your little fingies to type shit. I think it makes the world more engaging. I think it makes every little part of, you know, every little person you talk to important. It makes the feeling of finding the secrets that much more exciting, right? It's not like it's La Mulana 2 or anything, but it's definitely, it is the La Mulana of Dragon Quest, dude. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are. For that matter, Dragon Quest 2 is probably like my least favorite one. Dragon Quest 2 is pretty bad, I would argue. So take the tight pacing of 1, right? Take the systems of 1, a game made for a single character over a period of like 10 to 20 hours, and then turn it into a game with a shitload of party members, way more land to cover, and essentially just bloated up. Like, it's as a sequel, it's the bigger scale. You're getting your boat, you're getting a bigger world, you get party members, but everything else is essentially what was for the first game. So like the inventory is a pain in the ass to mess around with. There's just way longer, annoying dungeons. The runbacks are super long. You're in your boat for like... You want to hear the joke about too much water? Play Dragon Quest 2. There's a lot of fucking water in Dragon Quest 2. You're on your boat for like a really long time. Some of those final runbacks into where you're having a boat to go through one of the most annoying dungeons that they reused in 11 in the side content for some reason. Stuff like that. It's just... Everything takes forever. You need your like Sage's stones and stuff to even, possibly make it through with your resources. So it kind of is just more like an annoying game with an annoying quality of life. It's just... I had a better explanation for that. You go watch my original playthrough video, or the end of that if you want to get like a really fine-tuned thing. But it was like, if one was tightly packed, but like if they fucked with the skeleton anymore, it would break. 2 was what like broke it, right? Like it can't handle all this extra shit. The system just, like I said, the items, just the resource management, the size of the world with all the movement you gotta do and stuff, some of the encounter rates and shit. It's a fucking annoying ass game to play. It's not bad. I think they sucked. Yeah, you might remember better than me. This one, I forget a lot of the details, so I feel bad talking so bad about it, but yeah, it was just after 1, it was a very just annoying game to play. It still had a lot of notes you had to take and stuff to find there, but the sheer scale of it and shit compared to 1, it just didn't work as cleanly. It was just not as tight of an experience, and I really like that about 1. So going into 2 and getting essentially what's more of a, I wouldn't say modern scale, but kind of going closer to that. It has a lot of those same issues that something, large like an 8 has. Where there's just a lot of bloat and a lot of bullshit. 1's just a very tight game, and 2 just feels a lot less tight. Like a lot needed to change. I had a lot more elegant way of putting all this probably in my original video, but how long was Dragon Quest 2? I think it was like double the length, maybe. Yeah, about 20 hours. 20 hours for a game that felt essentially like it was made to be another one like the first one. So you're doubling the length, but having the same ideas and principles behind all the stuff going on in it. Like I said, I still like the puzzly, write notes nature of the game, and just to find out where to go kind of stuff. But as far as the quality of life and gameplay is concerned, it's just a fucking drag, man. And yeah, the party members might have just blown chunks. I mean, the main character being the worst party member isn't really a thing for a while. I don't remember when he starts being like the worst party member. What games? He's usually the one of the most useful because he does do the jack of all trades. I think they kind of start blubbing that after a bit. Like, yeah, in 11 I do use him as a healer a couple times, and his damage is pretty solid. But there's better strats. But that's the thing with 11 is there is other strats. In the old Dragon Quest, there's not really a whole lot of strategy. You have your couple that are obvious, and then your stats. So, yeah, can't really go any deeper into Dragon Quest 2 because honestly, I forget a lot of the fine details on how all the combat went, some of the world design. I just remember it being, well, as far as any of the mainline goes, probably the most unpleasant to play. It's funny. I think Elegy's playing that like tomorrow or something. That's probably the one make you not interested in Dragon Quest right there. But I think some people consider 2 pretty good. I don't know I wish we had a 2 fan in here so I could talk to them about why. Anyways, 3. I'll put 3 here for now. I might put it up there with Dragon Quest 1. We'll see. 3 is a pretty big mix-up. A little bit of that puzzle nature's gone, but this is the one that starts introducing little stories, more unique towns you go to. Like, you go to a town and it's got its own little story and it looks really unique and it's got cool music. And it kind of focuses in on what essentially becomes a staple for the series, right? The anthology adventure. So I think it's really cool for that. I don't have a lot of other big thoughts on it, honestly. It's otherwise, I mean, they clean up the gameplay a little bit. Did this one have a party? Like, it had a party, but did it have class system? It's not terribly remarkable in that. Like, that's the big thing that I remember. I remember a lot of the games after this a lot more clearly. But 3 and like parts of 2 are like, it doesn't help that they're like 10 hours long, right? Yeah, I need to look into it a little bit more. Like, I barely remember. I need to watch more on it. Built your own party? Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, a lot of big changes I feel like in the story structure and a little less puzzly shit going on. Still had some open-ended stuff, which was neat. But yeah, a lot of those details I forget. Look, man, it's Dragon Quest. They run together. They just do, man. It's like the whole series. It's not like a super remarkable thing, man. Like, they run together a lot. They look very similar. They play very similar. They have very similar stories. And none of those are like top of the fucking class in video games or anything. So that's just how it goes. I think it's good, and I'd honestly consider playing the remake. The 2 to 3 jump is big, but 4 and 5, they're similar to 3, and that's where they run together for me. Less, I think, the jump between 2 and 3, and more everything after 3 is a lot like 3. But it in turn becomes a little bit more muddy for me. I think it's good. I mean, some people consider this like the best one. I think that's fair. Like I said a few minutes ago, I'd honestly consider putting it up a notch. You mix 7 and 4. 7 I remember pretty clearly. Well, not clearly. I don't remember every little fucking story, but just its structure is super memorable. The Ultra Anthology. 4's big thing I remember is it's obviously unique characters and stuff. I kind of want to put 3 up. I think I'll end up having it be up regardless. We'll see. Because 1's just a really clean, fun game, but 3 has a very comfy kind of anthology feel to it. It looks really nice. I mean, I played the SNES version again. Like all the animations, it's got less of a, from what I remember, like annoying world travel and bloat and shit. It's a longer game, but it handles the pacing way better. Yeah, we'll put that there. Dragon Quest 4, I played the phone version. Not the best way to play it. Playing on your phone sucks. I don't know where I'd put this, but it's definitely below the other ones. I liked the idea in 4 of all the individual party members, that they had their own little stories. I thought kind of resetting that every now and then was a fun way to do the narrative. And to kind of get you into the characters a bit before you threw them all into a final party. Obviously, they play a little different, which is nice, but that's only within the realm of Dragon Quest. I mean, they're not... A lot of them are going to do very similar shit still, but shit like the Merchant was actually a bit more creative. The Mage Sister... Well, it wasn't... One was like a whip user or something, right? Stuff like that was cool. I think it's something I wouldn't mind seeing again in a way, right? Where you actually run around and play different characters and have unique gameplay styles and shit. The thing is, in the grand scheme of games, you get stuff like FF6 that absolutely takes a huge dump on this exact same idea. So it's not really super great in the grand scheme of things, but I think it's cool for Dragon Quest and something I wouldn't mind seeing revisited. The Dream Team parties, or at least the 11 style where you can swap in and out whoever you want is neat. 11 has moments where you can only use certain people, which is another cool way of doing it. I like that in JRPGs, when they tell me what party members I can use and put together specific compositions that I can only use, and then challenges based around that. So if your characters are very dynamic or not very dynamic, that's just some fucking buzzword bullshit. Very unique, and they can interact with the other characters in somewhat unique ways, or bring like special strategies to the table. Creating fights designed around these different party comps and stuff is cool. And if you just had a dream team, you might never bother. Like if you only made me use Eric as a damage dealer, like I would have to figure out how to do best damage with them, so I try new shit. I think when you just have like consistency with a dream team, you can fall into doing a lot of the same strategies. Because the game doesn't really want to ask anything else of you, especially in these old ones. The way a lot of the RNG works, the turn orderings, the amount of information available to you, consistency and safety is like the most important thing, and then all stats are the most important thing, so grinding. But I think when you have more information and more variety of party members, you can bring more interesting challenges, and then in turn have more fun gameplay. Having that all available at your fingertips, I think, is also fine. But you gotta ask challenges of people, I think, too. You have to have like, or at least, even if not challenges, just like make it interesting to want to try different shit, right? I mean, you could say, like a DMC5 is a totally different kind of game, but you could kill anything with a couple moves, but it's fun to try the other shit because it just looks cool or it sounds cool, I don't think a Dragon Quest does a good job of that, but when you force them like in 4 to do it, I think it's interesting. I think 4 in the last act, if I remember right, is a little meh. Obviously the cool novelty is the different characters. And the gameplay was nothing super insane. I think 3 is a bit cleaner, and like I said, I like the open-ended feel of it. 4 obviously has a little less open-ended nature to it because you kind of railroaded to characters for a bit, but you get a few different ones. Like I think the Terrano shit or whatever his name is has a bit more open feel. But it's solid. That's the thing with Dragon Quest, they're all solid. 2 is probably, like I said, the one I like the least, but it's hard to do a tier list. They're not like wildly, radically different. I'd have to have just played them or really reviewed them to remember some of the intricacies, because they're very simple. But yeah, I'll put 5 up here. Obviously for me, 5 was the first 3D one. I played the PS2 version. It mixes things up the most gameplay-wise, outside of obviously having like a full party. But once you get full party, it has, multitude of different actual party members, but it also has recruitable monsters, which is neat. I thought that was fun. At the end of the day, they still just have a lot of the same moves you'd expect, which is the problem with any class system in Dragon Quest, is it's still just the same pool of moves. They're just divvied out amongst like a list of classes, so it's not really that exciting. I mean, there's some unique shit, but I think 5 has... I think it's cool having a monster party member. I think the time skip and you having like the kids and picking the wife and your kids to look like them was some cool kind of flavoring. Also how monsters are just like a bigger part of like the story and shit. More dialogue with them is a lot of fun. Other than that, it's just a solid like semi-open, just clean story. A lot of the stuff with the dad was legit Kino, man, actual Kino. It's just a really clean game. I almost want to put 5 up there with 11. I think it's kind of more in that tier. We'll have to see though. I'll make adjustments. I definitely don't want to just like fall in line with common opinion either, because I think 5 is considered pretty good. But yeah, I mean 5's just clean. It doesn't have like a crazy ultra deep, you know, class thing going on to the same extent, but I think the monster stuff and it's a nice base campaign and cool little characters and events that happen just kind of make it fun. It's other than that, it's not anything super different, but it's just solid. And I think really the more solid you are, less annoying, and like having a couple little interesting things is kind of what makes you good in Dragon Quest. I think if it's just run of the mill or has a couple annoying things like 2, then like that kind of puts you farther down the list. I don't know, maybe I'd put 5 higher. Well, no. I think this is fair. I think 11 is like above most of the series, so right underneath would be my favorite. Refreshing liking the most popular ones for once, knowing that everybody else has maybe the right opinion. Yeah, I don't try to be a contrarian for sure. I fall in with public opinion a lot. I just try to not have public opinion sway me. But everybody's swayed a little bit, so you gotta be careful. I think with Dragon Quest though, I mean I generally would fall in. Well, no, not exactly. I'd probably put 8 a little lower. We'll see. But yeah. When we were playing 4, some people said that was like the best one. I don't know if I agree with that, but thing is I could respect it, right? Maybe you just really like the individual stories in 4. And if we're talking just in comparison to Dragon Quest, then it's fine. In the grand scheme of things, that's a little different, so. What's next? 6. So 6, I'd probably put 6 around 4 level. 6 has the most complicated world. It's like 2 full world maps. You have to drop through fucking weird holes in the world to get to the other ones. It's got the class system, which honestly, the Dragon Quest class system I always thought was a bit of a pain. It essentially takes forever to rank up. Like you only rank up like 4 or 5 times or whatever the fuck it is. And then by the time you're, you know, and if you have to go on a big adventure, you're going to max out on that adventure. So you always want to like top it off, and it can get kind of annoying. And then also how the jobs are kind of just like the typical Dragon Quest pool set of moves, just kind of divvied out to a bunch of different classes. I thought was a little underwhelming, but until 9, I guess, or whatever, this is probably the best job system. You also get real characters to give the jobs to, which is neat. You also upgrade to bigger, you know, super jobs and all that, so that's fun. The thing is, when you compare it to something like a, you know, Final Fantasy V or like a Final Fantasy Tactics or other games with job systems, they have a lot more robust strategies. You know, every class feels really different. Granted, you know, they have gameplay that allows it, but I mean, why couldn't Dragon Quest, you know, up the ante a little bit, right? So they have more unique jobs. The combinations to get them and just the amount of jobs are more neat. A lot more fresh abilities specific to those games. FF5 Mogs, it's not even my favorite Final Fantasy, but I think you could make that argument still, yeah. Not even my favorite, but I think in general Final Fantasy Mogs Dragon Quest, it's not even close. And I mean, I don't hate Dragon Quest. I think they're comfy and they do what they try to do well. They just don't try to do a lot. And I think Final Fantasy, they allow themselves to be a lot more creative in art and music and in gameplay. And even then, some people would say that Final Fantasy is not super creative gameplay-wise. Yeah, the gameplay for sure. I mean, absolutely. I would take like almost even FF6 combat, like a really old one over 11. Just because of the unique characters and ATB being a much more exciting than this, but I don't know, maybe 11 has better combat than 6, I'm not sure. I would say after that though, even if the combat's easier in Dragon Quest, it's much more even if the combat's easier, like the games are easier in Final Fantasy, the special moves, the summons, the flare, how the combat changes in each game a bit, regardless of difficulty, it just makes it more exciting, usually. Yeah, more dynamic, like more complex class systems and stuff. That's where I think like challenge is important in JRPGs, and I know I talked about it quite a bit earlier, where you gotta require the players to want to switch up stuff. I feel like it'd be truly like satisfying, but I mean, I think Final Fantasy is way easier, but it's way more fun, man. Like sometimes just having a cool combat system that's unique with some flashiness and just that basic feeling of good level ups and progression is enough, right? Regardless of how much you gotta kick ass. I mean, as long as you're not just one-shotting bosses, right? You're still gonna feel some good, some tug in Final Fantasy. You're not one-shotting, so. But yeah, that's a different conversation. I definitely, that's not a change. I think 11's one of the only ones that really even gets close. On average, for sure. I'm not even like some Final Fantasy fanboy. On average, I much prefer the experimentation of Final Fantasy. It still feels like Final Fantasy to a certain extent, right? They pull a lot of the same, you got your chocobos and you got your turn-based battles and a lot of them. And your naming schemes and, they still got like a similar core, but they allow themselves to be a lot more crazy than Dragon Quest does. I just kind of like that better. But anyways, yeah, 6. 6, it's got just kind of a more rigid class system that takes a lot longer to upgrade and can kind of be a quality of life pain in the ass. Traveling around is interesting. If you take a break from the game, you're going to be lost. There's a lot of different complex paths to take and a lot of different ways to drop down to different worlds and stuff. But for that, it's a pretty cool game. But other than that, it's pretty standard fare. It's got like the hardest final boss in Dragon Quest, I think. I'd have to look through them all, but this is one of the only ones I had to actually like grind a chunk for, not just a little bit. The first second game you're just gonna die and then you just do a run back and you level up on the way. But 6 I had to take like a break and do it. It was really annoying. Really cheesy final boss with the regenerating hands and stuff. But yeah, it's got your prison arc and all that bullshit. They all have those. But it's pretty solid. I don't have like a big issue with 6. It's just other than the job stuff, it's just kind of felt like another Dragon Quest game. I don't think it does anything really unique story wise or anything. It looks good. I liked playing it I played it on the DS. I don't have a lot to say about 6. It defines itself by all of its special party members you can get, and its job system and its double world. Other than that, your typical story. I barely remember the episodic stories for the towns. I think they were just the same old. It doesn't do a whole lot really unique there to differentiate it. Those definitely run together a bit more. So let's move on to the next one. 7. I like 7 the more I get away from it. It's kind of like a Final Fantasy 8, where if you asked me right after I beat it, I'd be like, eh, pretty alright. You know, and then do a tier list, I'd be like, eh, it's lower, but like, eh. There's things I like about it a lot. The farther away I get from it, I think as I gloss over, polish the problems with it off in my mind. So 7, I think I would put 7 maybe like the top rung of this. I like 7. I like the anthology system a lot. I think they just went pure on it. It's just raw episodic storylines. There is not even a unifying thing to them other than the main characters, one of which just pieces out on you until very late in the game. I think if you just like the Dragon Quest III style, if you like the 4 kind of style, you just want little stories, it's taking that to its... Is it Zenith? Is that the word I'm looking for? It is... I don't think we'll see an episodic story like this in Dragon Quest ever again. It's literally you just pick from a fucking list, essentially. You go to this... After you do like a 10 fucking hour intro, you just go to a fucking room and take literal like puzzle pieces and like make new episodes to go visit. And then once you finish those episodes, they drop into the world. And then that actually makes your world map, and it's a cool idea. And you know, they do a lot of neat stuff with it and with time, and it's cool. It's really long and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really have a unifying like story to it for a while, so you're kind of just like, you know, what's the next episode? It feels like something you could just play like once a week. You go through a story or something. Maybe there's designed for that. I don't know. It's one of those, like, it could be a fucking mobile game, right? I mean, each story takes a while, right? I mean, they're not quick, so, you know. You're gonna meet new characters every time. They're gonna have a unique kind of little thing going on. Like maybe there's a war with, you know, some science robot guy versus the people, and you know, his army and their army, and you know, it'll introduce you to characters, and you'll go through twists and arcs and stuff. And every area feels kind of unique. The stories, I feel like, get aped from here on. They take a lot. Even 11 has some stuff. The towns with, you know, everybody's a fucking animal or something. Although that's happened multiple times in the series, where everybody's frozen, or everybody's marble or some shit. You know, 7 has a lot of those. So I really like that part. And honestly, I wish that 11 had kind of the variety, and in a way quality, more the variety of stories that 7 has when it comes to its little individual areas, because its unifying story is not super crazy, so I'd at least rather have the small stuff be good. I think having your main characters be well characterized like the 11, and then throw them into interesting places that maybe challenge their character or fleshes them out, or just fun to see mix with these like crazy situations would be really cool. But sadly, I just don't think the characters in 11 get to really go and do any like really super interesting shit. So I think that style with 7 would be cool, but I don't think they'll ever go back to literally picking fucking stories from a list. If you like the exploration of the open world, 7 doesn't. I mean, until way later, you might get to choose from a couple stories at once, and you get to move around within that small area you can go to, but it tends to not be super crazy. One sec here. So I think if you're fans of that style, that kind of sucked a bit, because I do like the style of 1, where it's a bit more, you know, or 1, 2, 3 and stuff, where it's a bit more open. You gotta like write shit down and stuff. 7 is them taking that to its like reverse. The negative, it's pretty much on rails. But if you get into the stories, it's pretty cool. I think it's just a little bloated. It's a little too long. Before 11, it was the longest one. That's like well over 100 hours just to beat the fucking game. And it doesn't have the plethora of side content. None of them really have that much side content, to be honest. Only 11. 9 a little bit. And then there's some stuff here and there, and 8 and beyond. But most of the games are just kind of their main story. So 7 being like over 100 hours plus, just to beat the game. That tells you the kind of pace the game has. So it's cool to have those little stories, but goddamn, it's a bit much. You're definitely tapped out. But it's cool. I've heard the 7 PS1 version. I should say which versions of all these I played. I'll go back to it in a sec. The 7, Dragon Quest 7 was... I played it on 3DS. You could avoid battles in the world, which was really nice. So the quality of life was better. I've heard that they cut down a lot on bloat and extra bullshit from the PS1 version. I could only imagine the PS1 version is glacial in its pacing, so definitely would not play that version unless you really like the visuals. But yeah, so that was cool. I guess I'll go back through which ones I played. Played obviously Dragon Quest XI-S on Game Pass, which is a Switch version on PC. Essentially, I played the SNES version of Dragon Quest 1, fan translation. The SNES version of 2 and of 3, all fan translated. The fan translations for 2 and 3 are busted after a while. Game breaking bugs. I technically never finished 2. I killed the final boss and couldn't do the world tour afterwards, so we just watched it real quick. So 3 has those issues too, but that's... I'm not here recommending ports, I'm just kind of telling you what I played. 4 I played the Android version. Definitely wouldn't recommend that. It's a pain in the ass. Party chat or not, playing games on your phone like that suck. Dragon Quest 5 I played on PS2, which I would recommend. The DS version probably has better quality of life, but the 3D, the very kind of like more chibi kind of, not full chibi, but it's not like 8 where it's this huge world. It's more of like a small world map feel. Like, you know, you're the size of a tree, where in Dragon Quest 8, you know, the tree's actual size, right? But it's more sizes, and it's comfy for it. I liked it. I liked it in 3D. Less content, less brides, stuff like that, but I played the fan translation of that. 6, I played the DS version. I think that's fair. I do think the sprites are great, and that's another thing about the series I guess we could talk about, is the monster design is one of the best things about Dragon Quest. The old sprite work, the SNES animations and the backgrounds were all so cool. They would do like a full animation every time, and then we're set to like still and stuff, and it was full of soul, man. And the designs were just really good. I don't know how they always make the final bosses look so lame. Toriyama just does way better when it comes to like more comic, kind of fun, whimsical enemies. Because, yeah, the sprite work and just the designs of them all are really solid. But I think that's fair for sure. Well, Dragon Quest 7 I think is like a semi-2D, 3D kind of thing, right? I don't think it's pure 2D, is it? I could be wrong. On PS1, that is. But yeah, I did like 5, so 3D though. I thought it was comfy, but there's some bits like some bits like the main character's dad's death and shit that look really cool with actual camera angles and shit. So, but obviously it's not to the same standards as like 11 or 8. But yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's still fair. I mean, they make 2D version Dragon Quest 11 for a reason. Oh yeah, those are the versions I played. 7, like I said, 3DS. So. Okay, 8. I'm gonna put 8 in here. This is probably my hottest take, right? But I feel like I've more than covered why I feel this way in the past, and so I don't feel bad about it. I mean, where it stands in this, it's probably, I mean, the best one or something. Sure, whatever. I don't know. I don't know if we could get that granular with Dragon Quest. I just think of the tiers as tiers, right? Instead of like the micro that I usually do. I could try. We could just do it for shits, but I don't think hard about it. 8 for me. While it had the best characters up to that point, it had the biggest budgets. grandest world. You know, it's huge scale. I mean, the scale is even bigger than like 11, it feels like, right? 8's just huge, giant areas that you take forever to run through. Big symphonic score. I think it was the first one that I heard that had like the full orchestral. Maybe 5 had one too, I'm not sure. No, I don't think so. Full big orchestral. It makes it feel really grand. It makes it feel like a proper adventure. The characters you start out with are fun. They're, you know, they're not down on their luck. The main character's got a lot of kind of like, you know, expressions and stuff, which is fun. You know, Yangus is fun. Rodan and all them are cool. You get a lot of these cool mystical elements, like the horse being the princess. And so you really start out as this kind of like underdog, and I kind of like that. Trying to do this big journey back through the world to right everything and figure out what's going on. So yeah, it feels big. It looks big. They add in some new things to the gameplay, like tension and a skill tree. Well, they're not skill trees; they're just pointed. So for all intents and purposes, I mean, they have like torches. Like there's actual like kind of, you know, dungeon stuff going on. There's a few little side things to do. But man, I found myself bored with it a lot. The 3DS version might absolutely elevate what this is. I played this version because I think, to me, the most important part of the game, maybe at the very beginning it had torches when you're in the sewer, but I don't think it was a common thing. Not like it was in 8. It wasn't that common in 8, but it definitely appeared throughout the game. Even little things like that made 8 immersive in a big world. 8 also had a few things that you had to figure out on your own, like the mirror with the shadow. So that was kind of cool. 8, for all intents and purposes, feels like more of an actual journey and adventure than maybe 11 does. And I'm comparing these two because they're the biggest scale, the most presentation, which is where Dragon Quest can upgrade itself the most without destroying any of its core identity. But they handle it very differently. The level design, the scale, little immersive things like that, like torches and shit, they're handled very differently. Even down to just resource gathering and shit. Yeah, so for me, the most important thing when I was going into 8 was like, well, I'm going to play the PS2 version. You get the good music, you get the visuals, and I'm like, well, that's the biggest upgrade. If I was to recommend someone nowadays, I'd probably say play the 3DS version. The upgrades and visuals were big. I think it was really cool, and it was definitely the most standout thing. I just think the quality of life, the level design, the pace, the back-end RPG system, you know, your talents, the leveling, everything sucks. And it's really bad on PS2. They add new systems like forging. Takes like an hour or two to finish a forge. Okay, dude. You know, like, I mean, it's not even fun. You don't even know what the recipes are, hardly. You have to guess. It's like, it's clues. It's just very slow and annoying. The world is just fucking empty, man. There's nothing in it. There's a chest, you know, there's gonna be chests, like 5 chests. So in Dragon Quest 11, there'd be 5 chests in a zone. The zone is 100 by 100 feet. In Dragon Quest 8, there's 5 chests, and the zone is 1,000 by 1,000 feet. It's way bigger, and it looks epic. And in your mind's eye, you'd be like, oh yeah, that was a really epic journey. But it's fucking shite to play through, man. I think it was still random battles on PS2 as well, so that makes it take even longer. I don't think you get any mounts for a long time, and that takes a bunch of cutscenes to pull out. It's not just a button like in 11. Oh, you mean the actual size or something? Or what? I mean, technically Dragon Quest 8's overworld is smaller than its actual size. when you get in the boat. It just doesn't feel as small as like 11's. Not like the actual map chunks are like loaded in or something. But what 11 does is like has a tighter... Oh, I see what you're saying. In the size of it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I get what you're saying. Like in 8, like every area is essentially like walking through overworld. I don't know. I would say that, yeah, honestly, I mean, Dragon Quest 11, like each area feels like how long you'd probably spend in a chunk of a 2D game's non-overworld section. It feels like more fitting there. Where 8 felt like everywhere I walked was like an entire fucking world, man. Like the amount of time it would take to get anywhere was like by far longer than any other game in the series. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's supposed to feel like it's seamless, like it's just one giant world. You can kind of tell in the boats and flying that obviously it's a little smaller and there is an overworld, but they try to blur the lines, right? Where 11, yeah, like you said, has a proper, like, real overworld, which isn't as immersive, but there's a reason they do that, because it's really annoying to spend the half of your natural life going everywhere. And I think it's cool. I do think it's a cool idea, and it is cool in stuff like a Elden Ring or something. But on the PS2, the amount of stops you gotta make, the very small amount of content you're doing in each area, how the story is kind of just it is kind of monster of the week. I don't like the episodic stories that much. The overarching story is just you failing 1,000 times to get to the guy. There's not a whole lot of really drive. There's not a lot to explore, and it's really annoying to just fucking take your time to go through this world. And I think all of that kind of just melds together into just kind of being an unpleasant experience a lot of the time. I find myself, I would do off-stream walking the zones. I would just be bored a lot more than a lot of the Dragon Quests. It looks great. It looks awesome, but I would definitely not recommend the PS2 version for that reason. I think its biggest strengths are at its highest in 2, but the sum of all parts, 2, I don't know how 2 was so big on PS2, man. It is a very unpleasant game to play. Like I said, I mean, on the 3DS, the forging is instant. You know exactly what to do with everything. You know what all of your skill tree points will give you. Pretty big to have the only new system, one of the only new systems in the game, actually tell you what you're going to get. You can actually make strategies, right? So you can run for the overworld has monsters, or the the world you explore has monsters and stuff like that. Obviously more content and stuff. Everything that sucks about 7 is, I suppose, fixed in 3DS, but it gets big downgrades where it kind of counts. So there's no perfect version of 8. But yeah, I just found the sum of all of its parts to just be kind of whatever. Like I said, I didn't care for the episodic stories much. I thought the characters were the best the series had at that point, but once they kind of introduced them, go through a little arc here or there, like Angelo has his brother thing, Jessica gets over her, the parent stuff, Angus just becomes more of a bro. He doesn't really go through a whole lot. They do little things, but for the most part, it's relegated to party chat, and a lot of the party chat, and well, I didn't read it all, so to be fair, a lot of the party chat was just the typical, oh, they all say the same thing with a bit of flavoring based on their personalities. So I definitely think the characters were the best at that point, but they're not really good in the long run, and in all of games, so that wasn't enough to carry it. Like, if you could just have one thing that was just godly, like maybe it would have been okay. But there's just so many annoying things going on in 8. I still had a lot of fun with it. Like I said, the big epic presentation and the feeling of like a real like scaled adventure was really special, and I get why that would be a big deal on PS2 back in the day. That would probably feel very awesome, right? Especially for like a young kid or some shit. You know, there's not many 3D games that were probably going for that kind of scale, but you could get those are dime a dozen nowadays. I think these are just better paced. I mean, like 1 and stuff. Like it might not be as big epic of an adventure, but it's just more fun. So I think 8 just feels there a lot. I think when people mention 8 a lot, it's probably the new version, and I think that's fair. I did play some of the new versions of these. But this is me just comparing the ones that I played. I mean, like I told you. But since there is no perfect version of 8, you know, make the call I make. I liked what I liked of that decision, but there's also a lot of bad shit. And I think it's the only version out of all these I would say maybe I would have played. If I go back and tell myself play a different version, I would. It hurts its biggest strength. I mean, the thing is, like, when I was going through 7 games in a row, I want to focus on what makes that game special, right? And 8's was its presentation, so it sucks that all of the other stuff is just abysmal, man. Oh, also tension sucks. I forgot, I've mentioned that before. I think the tension system was just boring. It's way too good for how fucking annoying the bosses are about wiping it or canceling it. You know, you're getting your mid-game bosses or your end-game bosses who multiple times a turn, every other turn, they would wipe your buffs, which wipes tension, which, you know, tension does like 10 zillion times the damage of anything else. Even just getting it to its second highest level is a crapshoot, but you can do it just often enough, and you will like one-shot bosses with it essentially. So you're like, you do want to keep doing it. You're not like just told not to mess with it because it's the new system. You've played, you know, for me 7 games before this point. You're like, well, I want to try out the new shit. This is neat. You know, you can play the tension system and do your buffs and debuffs and really, you know, bust some ass. But man, the RNG on it, the amount of time it takes to tension up, the amount of times bosses will wipe it, it just makes, for once again, it's just unpleasant. Otherwise, the gameplay is the same shit. The talent tree, like I said, is a neat idea. I think it's a cool thing to add, and obviously they keep it going forwards and improve on it. But in the PS2 version, it's just, you just dump points and see what you get. I looked up what all I would get ahead of time, which is not obviously what's in the game, so I would recommend if you play the PS2 version, do the same, because it makes for a very unsatisfying RPG backend, which is one of the few things in Dragon Quest that's actually really fun. That's another thing about the series I like. We can talk general. Usable items. Items are actually very usable and actually very useful in Dragon Quest. I think 11 is actually where they're probably the least used. Infinite use items like Sage's Stones are absolute god items until 9. Super useful, essential. What you can do with all these kinds of items, infinite use staves, benevolence, they have those in like 11, is essentially give people moves that they wouldn't have normally. So if you do want to play a more supporty game, you do have some oh shit moments, you have a lot of items, you have a limited amount of items you can hold on each person. I need to turn this down. And I think that actually adds for a very unique bit of strategy that only Dragon Quest really kind of does on the same level. I mean, Final Fantasy has infinitely usable items in some of the early ones, and items are useful in just like about any JRPG, but having like a very limited kit of items and using them per character, like specific loadouts, is something I think 11 is what Dragon Quest does that's cool. It has bad quality of life in most of the games, even 11. When it comes to outfitting characters' inventories out, you have to do them one at a time usually. It's really a pain. 11 just doesn't do it. Items are not very useful in 11. I'll use a couple, but for the most part, every other Dragon Quest game you're using items all the time, so I think it's a strength of it. I'm trying to remember how I got into that conversation with 7, or 8 I mean. I think it was the talent tree system. I don't know. I didn't like the talent tree system. I didn't like tension. I didn't like the talent tree. The overworld was fucking boring as shit. The stories, I don't mind that it's less focus on it, but I wish the episodic stories were a little better. It's just not enough to carry it. I think they dropped the characters off a cliff too hard. It's a good game still, and I get what people like, but to a certain extent, especially with the PS2 version, I think people just remember the glitz and glamour of it all. It's a pretty unpleasant game at times otherwise. Play the 3DS version. It might not have as much presentation, but it's going to get destroyed in presentation by 11 anyways. So you might as well get all of the awesome upgrades of the 3DS version to eliminate all of the really horrible shit of 8. I think for me, I wouldn't have hated the vague story if there was something else. But for me, it was like, okay, I hate most of what's going on in this game, and then I can't even latch onto the story, right? Like, there's just not even anything there. And it was so repetitive. Oh, I'm going to go to this place, and they're going to job super hard against, X and Y, and this whatever they're doing in this place, and they're going to do it again and again and again and again and again. And then the guy just turns into the super dude, and it's like... I mean, I get that all the other games have that kind of anthology feel too, but I don't think the individual stories were enough for me in 8. And like I said, the characters don't go to enough places that while everything else in the game kind of sucks, that I can't even get anything on the story to grab onto. It's like, eh. I think if everything else, like the old ones, like you're saying, if the gameplay was better, everything else was better, then I'd be fine having no story. I mean, I have 1 higher up here. I have 3 higher up here. They barely even have a story, right? Because they're just raw gameplay, and it's just really good. 8's, I cannot stress how bad they implemented all of the new shit and all of the quality of life is in 8, and how it affects the world design, how it affects the character builds, how it affects crafting. It's atrocious, and it's crazy it even got released that way. Because they change it all in the 3DS version. It's completely different. It's like a new game from the looks of it. So I think that's where maybe me and you differ there pretty hard. I wish there was a perfect version of 8. But yeah, for me, I don't know. It's like I don't need a crazy story. Like I said, I have games up. I mean, I'm playing all the Dragon Quest games. They don't even have good stories. Like I don't need it. I just needed like something, right? Like, if nothing else is cool, at least with these characters, they could do something neat and exciting with the story. But even that, like, the individual stories of 7 were more interesting than 8. And then 8 goes for a more overarching story, and it's kind of just an excuse for a world romp in a world I don't really have fun exploring. So, I don't know. Still a good game. I think it's solid. I totally respect putting it at the top. But I would be like, well, if you put it at the top, you probably play the 3DS version. Or you haven't played Dragon Quest 8 in a long time. Or you got nostalgic goggles. Whatever I can do to protect my opinion, you've got it, alright? Not you, anybody in here personally, just the general fan base. Because I see 8 at the top of most people's lists, and I'm like, 8? Not the version I played. I think more people maybe play it on the 3DS these days. But... Or like I said, I've played since they were young. Ugh. It's just annoying to play. I mean, I guess if you know how to do everything, right? The alchemy is not going to be as big a deal, because you'll just know what to mix. And so you won't spend as much time experimenting or time waiting, because you'll just only do it so often. If you know what the skill trees are ahead of time, well, it doesn't really matter. You can't see any of it. If you know where everything is to find in the overworld, I guess it doesn't take as long to run through it. Or you can run from everything because you got better, strategies or better understanding of, maybe where to grind better or something. So it's like, there's ways I think in replaying it, you could cut down a lot on the bullshit. But as far as like a relatively blind playthrough goes on PS2, it's goofy. So, yeah. I got you there. I mean, 11's main story, I definitely, like I said, is not anything special. A lot of it's individual. A lot of it's like episodic shit. Like Snuffelheim is just like not interesting. It's not boring when I'm doing it because I do think the gameplay is fun enough. I do think the characters are good enough. I do think the presentation is good enough. I do think the RPG backend is good enough. So it's like, even if the stories of Dragon Quest XI aren't as good as, say, 7's, everything else is good enough where it elevates it. Where it's 8's the opposite. None of the other shit is good enough to elevate the story. But I don't think it like brings down 11. For an 8 it does, right? Ignore alchemy and barely explore the overworld. I mean, that's fair too. But I mean... yeah, I mean... this big open new area that's made to be explored, just to not explore it. This new crafting system where a lot of your best upgrades are just to not use it. That might be the best advice, but I still think that means the game's flawed. I think it's fine to do on the 3DS though. You can avoid all the fights in the overworld on the 3DS. You know what to do with alchemy on the 3DS. Like it is much more annoying on the PS2 version there. I would say, yeah, just play the 3DS version and then see about skipping all the random shit for sure. I think that's fair, but yeah. I mean, the game is not... their intent is probably to hope you want to engage with all those new systems, right? Dragon Quest barely changes anything, so when they add, you know, realistic scale and alchemy, you'd hope they'd want you to use it, but it's sad when, yeah, good advice is to not use it, especially in the case of Dragon Quest VIII. Yeah, I would say fuck alchemy in Dragon Quest VIII till the very end, or look up a guide for it. It's fun finding recipes in the beginning and experimenting, but it's just a pain. You think? I don't know. They put chests though in the overworld. In the very first area they have a side quest with a guy on top of a mountain. I think they set you up to think you should explore everything, and then they drop it off a cliff so you don't really do it. I think that's a cool way of thinking about it, but I think in practice it doesn't really end up like that. Because the thing about the perspective, right? In a 2D game, you look from above and you see everything for a very far distance around you, right? You know exactly what's on that mountain. You know exactly where the entrances are. In a 3D game, there's the tree line in the way. You can't see past the mountain. You know, you don't see behind you. You know, it's like, so you're going to want to actually like explore a bit and walk around a bit. In the very first area, they have chests hidden everywhere. They have a side quest, which there's barely any side quests in 8, but they got one in the first area, so it kind of sets up more a feeling of exploration. And I just think it's not really a great game design to be like, well, just don't explore in this adventure game, or just don't use the crafting. It's like, it might be the best advice, but I don't know. I'm just talking about the PS2 version also. The 3DS version, I think you're fine. You could just walk past the enemies, right? But I was getting in a fight every 2 seconds when I was walking around, so... Potato graphics, so I got a different deal. Yeah, that might be it too. As the graphics might have made it harder on PS2 because there'd be a lot more foliage or trees, and I have to get a lot closer to stuff to find shit. I liked the scale, but yeah, I think while the PS2 version is more focused on presentation and the 3DS version is more focused on gameplay and quality of life, the 3DS version absolutely just beats it out. I feel like objectively it has way less issues, and while you miss some of the soul of the PS2 version, it's got too much dragging it into the muck for sure. Scarlet Violet's here overworld. I've seen some gameplay, but it looks pretty rough. The characters and shit. I don't know if the voice quality is worse too. I know they had to recast somebody at least, but yeah, I think they have two very different strengths, and I just think that they also have different faults, and the PS2 version just has so many more faults that it makes for a significantly worse game. I'd have to replay it again to really make that call, but from everything I've talked to people about, everything I've seen, which we've talked pretty extensively about the differences, even just down to extra content, yeah. 3DS version's just, while it misses what's the biggest strength of 8, it absolutely polishes all of the faults out. Probably make the best version of it. So for me, this is the PS2 review here. What I think the 3D, if I in a hypothetical world, I'd probably knock 8 up a notch. If I play the 3DS version, maybe. But who knows? That didn't happen. I played the version that it was recommended. A lot of people recommended it. People recommended the 3DS version too. I couldn't get the 3DS one going properly for stream either, so I didn't really have a whole lot of choice. But yeah. That's probably where that is. Let's get rid of a tier, maybe. I don't want to get too granular, like I said. To be fair, I just don't think I am. We could attempt to. It is a small series of games compared to what we've done in the past. So I could go a little harder and try to, but they're so similar, it would be really arbitrary. So, unless I play them literally like back to back to back, and even then I'd have a warped opinion because I just played 11 Dragon Quest games back to back to back. I think having them be in a bit broader categories feels a little bit better. Anyways, 9. I'd put 9 here. 9's probably the second worst, or the worst. Now I have a different experience with this than most people. Some people, 9's their favorite because they played with their buddies after school on it. I didn't play with any buddies. Nobody's playing Dragon Quest 9 anymore, obviously. I played it as a single player game, which it is until post game, or you could do some of the single player, I think, co-op as well. Yeah, things are fun with your friends. I don't think it would essentially change the gameplay in a huge way, but it would, you know, add that person element, and you're not having control of everything. That post game having a lot of like extra content, you know, randomized, seeded content you can go through with your friends is really cool. It's obviously got an improved crafting system. It's good. You can only do it in one area, so that's annoying, but you know, you can craft whatever the fuck you want. Oh, that was another thing about 8. Materials were a pain in the ass to find. They like respawned, like there was like one place in each area to like find materials, and they respawn like it was either on exit or enter, like after like enough times, or it was like in-game days, or it was like real time. Something ridiculous. So that really sucked for that too. 9 does exit and enter, but I think it does some real time as well. It has like daily shit, which sucks. So anyways, it has better crafting. Maybe I should start with the multiplayer shit. I already started with it a bit. So anyways, I didn't play multiplayer. I get that's a big focus. I played the single player, which is where probably most of the effort was in the game. I mean, if you just think about assets and story and all that. So I think it's fair to just compare this as a single player thing. Not an MMO or anything. It lays the groundwork for one for sure. But it makes upgrades in quality of life. Like I said, the crafting is better. It's just 8's but good. It's got classes, which are better than I guess 6's and stuff. You create your own party again, like 2 or whatever it was. You can mix shit around there. It does a little bit of talent tree shit again. Which is similar to 8's, but you get a little bit more information, so the back end's a bit more fun there. You still have shops, but it's mostly in the crafting that your stuff is going to get made. Now it introduces more side content than anything in the series up to this point. And those are probably a lot of its strengths. Conceptually, maybe. Some of those things aren't executed super well. I can't speak for the multiplayer, but I can say that like where was I going with that? Sorry, I'm talking a lot. I'm kind of distracted. My brother's getting mad at some games. Well, we'll get to the other parts of Dragon Quest IX. Oh, the side content. That's what it was. The side content in Dragon Quest IX is like the worst side content. Like it makes 11s look like diamonds. It's every single side quest is just really annoying. Grind rare enemies, grind a certain amount of enemies, beat an enemy with a certain attack. You know, kill 5 dudes in one fight before they can run with like a certain attack in the first area. You know, just really fucking arbitrary, annoying shit. I skipped almost all of it after the first like 10 hours of this game, dude. And I normally would not. You saw me do all of 11, almost all of 11 except the post game. I could not be bothered at 9. They were just completely uninteresting. The rewards, I couldn't even tell if they were good. I mean, 11 had some shit rewards sometimes, but at least they were kind of harmless quests at the end of the day. All of 9's looked annoying, and they fucking did not seem worth it on top of that, so. Not a good execution. Yeah, he did not beat the game. Didn't play multiplayer, didn't go through every seeded dungeon. Did not do every single boar-ass quest line, collect 5 boar-asses. It's true, man. Yeah, so I skipped a lot of it going through the game. Most of it, I would say. The game is also very short. Shortest single player post 3, probably. And those are like ancient NES ones, right? So I think it took me 40 hours, something like that. If I did the side quest, maybe it'd take a little longer. Obviously, a lot of time went into helping people spend a shitload on the post game multiplayer shit. Yeah, no casino. That's another thing about the series. If we want to talk general stuff, I like the casinos, dude. Not many games I'd go hard in the casino, but the rewards are good enough in Dragon Quest that you always want to, right? The casinos will have like endgame gear. If anything, 11 had some of the worst rewards, but because of Draconic difficulty, I would do casino as we went through the game a couple times, so you still got those rewards. They just weren't good at the end, especially Act 3. I would like buy consumables that I used like one of that I didn't even need to use, right? But in the other areas, the little Mario Party thing, I don't remember what it was called, was really cool. In the old games, the actual casinos, a lot of the high-low games they did in like 5 were really fun. I really enjoyed the casinos, and the 9 doesn't have one. It's a short game, doesn't have casinos. The side content's not terribly interesting. A lot of it's just relegated to multiplayer. I think there's a little bit of post game. But yeah, other than that, the story's kinda, it's okay. It's nothing fancy. The idea that you're some kind of like, you know, fallen angel, and there's like turmoil and politics in the angel world there that's causing, you know, big bads to appear and all that is something. But you don't even get flying till the end of the game, like post game. You don't even get the flying train till then. It just felt like some of the dungeon design was a little bit better than the old games. There's like actual mechanics in a couple places, but customizing characters was fun. It was funny. But overall, it felt like kind of a weak campaign because they had probably too much time thought into other areas of it. So it makes for kind of just a shitty main story. And an experience you're not going to get the full multiplayer experience probably ever again until they port this thing. And even then, the multiplayer experience is like, what are you even going for? You could just gear up and fight more like randomly generated seeds and shit, but like, what's the goal? So oh yeah, the Garou Angel was pretty good, and I liked the train conductor guy. That was fun. The little prison arc with him. Those were cool. I liked that better than like a giant dragon you ride on or something. But yeah, for the most part, it's just a very underwhelming game. Not a great storyline. Not the most interesting episodic stories. Some of them are okay, like the one with the guy whose wife died. And you go to the crypt and stuff to save the townspeople and all that shit with them. There's a couple good ones, but for the most part, the main stuff's not that great. There's not good side stuff. They put time into side stuff, but the quests suck. The class system, while better than it's ever been, is still the same move pool of bullshit. It's the easiest Dragon Quest. One of the easiest. I didn't even need to grind it all at the end. I think I did a little bit, but it was overkill, so... Not that you're playing any of these for challenge, you shouldn't be really. You might want to have some challenge and some just to have some level of fun, right? Like 11 you might want to do Draconic, unless you skip everything, then you don't need to. But the game's combat systems aren't good enough to really warrant like a fun, difficult challenge. You should probably just want the exploration, the back-end RPG, and the comfy more than the actual challenge of the gameplay. Go play something else if you want challenge and no RPG. Something with more depth. But yeah, 9 though is even less than that. Not a bad game. Like I said, 2 is not bad either, but definitely on the lower end. I get it. You played it with your friends. That's cool. I hope you had fun. It was one of the first Dragon Quest games you played. It's 3D. It's on your DS. It's cool, man. I hope you had fun with it. Like, that's sweet. But yeah, it doesn't stand up very well these days. Regardless of multiplayer. I'm not an expert on the multiplayer. Couldn't tell you. It looks like it'd be boring as fuck because it's just seeded dungeons of dirt. But you know what? Hey, anything's fun with your friends. But I can tell you the single player is not too fancy for sure. And I think wanting to skip a lot of the side content hurts the immersion. You get less ingrained in the world. You think about it a lot less. You're just looking to move through the game. So in 11 I wanted to do everything and it kind of made me more into it all. It only hurt because I took so long to play through the game. But yeah, when I find myself just not interested in like delving deeper into anything, it's pretty annoying. It's also it was pretty linear. I remember right. They've all gotten like a bit more linear over time. I mean, even 8 was linear at times too, wasn't it? You just took a while to get to places and you might have had a couple diversions, so I definitely miss that about compared to the old ones is what I'm talking about, right? The old ones are much more, they just drop you in, which I kinda like. No bullshit. So. Anyways, that's kind of the take on 9. Not a bad game, but it definitely just felt lacking. I wouldn't say unpolished or something, but all of the other games above it at least felt like they, they hit a big meaty campaign. It felt like there were kind of, interesting little new systems or some kind of little story going on. They're not crazy, but they feel like big enough, right? This felt like it was just like it's sometimes an afterthought. This, some parts of it, like they clearly were revving up for 10. There was the multiplayer shit, so something has to fail. And I feel like it probably makes each individual aspect of it weaker than it should be. Where that's one of the strengths of the whole series is they're so fucking focused on just that single player run through that there's barely even any side content in these games. But at least the single player run through is like pretty solid, right? It's okay. It's solid enough. It's enjoyable. 9 just kind of, it misses the boat there. So. Yeah, no casino's really bad. Okay, builders. The best part of Dragon Quest. I love a builders one here. I think you're like, why are we talking about builders? It's not mainline. I don't care. Right? We're doing the ones I played. I just did the mainline, so you can just that's my. Oh, let me take it off. Is this what I think about mainline? I think 11's the best. I think that's fair. Just objectively. I think, some of these maybe I had more personal fun with at times, but I think 11 to entertain me for 180 hours. the level of quality and then polish and all the like the 2D mode and all this stuff. It's just hands down the best one, I would say. Doesn't mean these aren't maybe more fun in certain aspects, like 7's episodic stories are better. You know, the simplicity and puzzle solving of Dragon Quest 1 is better. You know, maybe you just like the wife stuff and certain story elements of like 3 or 5. I think there's little things you could say make, you know, maybe like the true scale open world of 8. I think it's not the best in all fields, but I think it's by and large everything it has. 11 worst one. What was your, where did you put 11? Did you put 11 in here? Is it the low Kiefer tier? Sub Kiefer tier, dude. Yeah, I thought that was weird because I figured you would have had it low. Or what, in some middle ground. That's how much I care. Damn, man. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think it had like that many cutscenes. I mean, it did have a fair amount compared to the other ones, but I don't know. I just didn't. Above Keeper. Above Keeper tier. I just didn't think the cutscenes really wore it down too much. Like, it's not an amazing main story, but like I said, the characters were at least fun to see. And the cutscenes would only go for a few minutes at a time. I just think its sense of actual exploration and not being handholdy was weak. So it makes it feel more on rails. So when you get those cutscenes, I don't think you ever got that feeling of like full open adventure to counter it. So maybe that's where it's more annoying. I mean, I get that. Yeah, and this one you get a cutscene when you walk into the town, a cutscene when you talk to the... I don't mind a little bit more story to get me invested. I just wish if they're going to do more cutscenes, the stories would be a little better. Or if they were going to have like an overarching story, yeah, just to tone it down here and there and just focus on character work. Because, I mean, when you think about 7, I mean, if you made 7 nowadays, it'd be cutscene city. 7 has non-stop fucking dialogue and like individual arcs they have to introduce in every little area, but it's like good for it. That's like its best strength. So it's like I don't mind it. It's more just the quality of the stories they're telling. I think if 11's characters were worse, I would agree with you totally. Would I prefer less story, more open, just figure it out yourself exploration? Probably. I think that's what makes some of the old Dragon Quest unique compared to your modern fare JRPGs. But if they want to go hard on a main story and make something really good, I don't mind more story. I do think good characters, though, are always nice. They're your traveling companions. I think you don't need to have a lot of crazy good characters if you're just going to have like a creative party. Like you could just have the Gyaru Fairy and shit, but... or if you're just like alone or something like in 1. But I think if you're gonna do a big story, you know, good cast and something probably more unique, or if I mean, either have a good cast and not a lot of cool character shit, or you have a more unique main story, I feel like. Or you just dial it back and hard focus on gameplay. I still feel like this game was like 90% plus gameplay though. Well, that's what I'm saying. 11's story isn't like... The main story's just not good enough. Like, I'm fine with more story if the story was, like, more solid. I don't think it's wrong to have more story. I just think they should know what they got, right? If you're gonna do a traditional, super basic Dragon Quest story, then you should probably dial back how much of it there is. I don't have a big problem with it in this game, though. I have more problem with the quality than the frequency. But I get you for sure. And I liked all the character stuff. For me, the biggest problem was the episodic stuff just wasn't that good. I think that's my biggest takeaway from the story. Like the Hodo shit with her son. I didn't really care that much. Like maybe the shit in the arena with that one guy was funny to talk about. So that was fine. But like Sniffleheim with the fairy lady, with the pajamas lady, like, eh. You know, a lot of those I just don't care about. I liked the more fleshed out, focused mini stories of like 3, 7, 4. I mean, those aren't the best storytelling games in the series, but like for when they were made, I feel like did that kind of storytelling better. I think if 11 had that with its characters, it'd be fine. I liked having the characters more fleshed out, though. More around. Made them feel like real things. I wish the main story went harder, or they did better episodic shit. Otherwise, yeah, do what you say and just cut out most of it, and just hyper focus on no handholdy, more NPC environmental kind of storytelling shit, where I have to figure out where to go. Make it more of a gameplay thing. What's up, Redless? My 8 complaint. Oh, what you said about 11? They ran together. Do I have to restart this list? I do. Let me do a different Dragon Quest list. We'll just do the same one. I don't give a fuck. I think with 8, it's like, every other system, like I said, was weak, so that's what hurt the story there. The idea of having a light story with good gameplay is good. I think 11 had the good gameplay, solid characters, but a weak story. But like, since everything else was pretty solid, it didn't hurt it super hard. But it could have been better for sure. I don't know. I don't have a big problem with the frequency. It's more the quality. I don't think compared to most games it has that much story even. It still feels pretty light. It still feels Dragon Quest enough. It just has more than the other Dragon Quest games. Like there wasn't like that many filler cutscenes, right? If it didn't have something to do with where you're at, it had something to do with like a character. Like compare that to like a Tales, where there's just literal non-stop cutscenes and talking and it's all filler and bullshit. Like it still feels relatively Dragon Quest there. Or like a Final Fantasy where it's mostly about the story. So I don't know, I didn't have a big issue there. I just wish that the main stories were a bit spicier. Use a cast of characters. A simple, well-characterized cast. They don't need to bloat them with a bunch of extra shit, but in a real story. Or just go harken back to the old episodic days of 3 and really make each episodic story really interesting and just have a simple cast to go experience it all. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I get that. I don't think you're like wrong. I just disagree a little bit, right? But I get where you're coming from. I agree with what you said there, though. The main story is just not good enough. And especially by Act 3 and part of Act 2, they're pretty much just retreading like basic stuff or doing, go find X MacGuffin, but they'll make like a 3-minute deal of it, where in the old ones they'd just be like, you just go up to the area and find it. So you could do more like that, though. So instead of, I need to go talk to this lady for 3 minutes to find out where the MacGuffin is, you go to like the top of a tower and just like discover it, or find like a plaque that tells you about it or something, like something more adventure-y, mystical. Instead of talking to the mermaid lady, maybe we could just go find something that tells us, maybe, like, that's not an amazing idea, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I got you there. I mean, that's fair. I think each person's kind of tendency for that thing kind of will change their opinion on that a bit, but I think that's totally fair. I think I would agree there. For the quality of the 11 story, there's probably too much of it. But I think the idea of having this much story in a Dragon Quest is fine. So, and I think for the most part, I don't find it a huge issue in 11. Because everything else is really solid, and I'm invested enough in the world from doing side content and the characters that I don't mind learning about them. I just think they could have been more fun, those stories, all those cutscenes, right? I think the old games, despite being more simple with their stories, have a lot more fun episodic stories, partially because of the pacing, I'd imagine, and how they don't always tie into some greater thing. Like in 7... Like, 7's super long, but at least all of its little stories were kind of cool. So I hope in 12, if they're going to keep doing story, which they will, probably. That's just how it is these days. They do something a little different. They shake it up a bit. It doesn't need to be, like, super different like a Final Fantasy. But, you know, if you're going to have good characters, do something with them. They don't need to just be party members. They can be a part of something. Or focus in on really solid side, you know, episodic shit, or preferably all of these, right? All three of them have a really interesting kind of shake and bake main story. More tightly paced, I think, is the best way they could fix that. You know, Evil Lord, MacGuffins, of course, that's just probably going to be there. But at least tighten it up. More set pieces, I think, would be cool. You know, you had a couple war scenes in this, but other than that, I mean, it's not a whole lot of crazy set pieces going on. Behind the Orb sucks. The MacGuffins or whatever. Yeah. I think you could frame it in a better way, for sure. I mean, it's a good way to get people just to freely go wherever they want. They did it in Dragon Quest 4, was it? Was it in the finale, or was that 3? Where you have to go get the 8, like, sigils or whatever. It's a good way to, like, gamify the story so that you could go explore everything. Like, hey, just go get the 8 sigils, you know? Good luck, and you just go, and, like, that's cool. It works in, like, an Ocarina of Time or something, right? But, nowadays, you can have a bit more robust storytelling, so you probably don't need to gamify it like that with the MacGuffins. You could just literally have a story where you go get like something important, or you get like a new ally, or just something happens, and then you go somewhere else in whichever order you want. And you know, maybe there's character moments. Maybe you're freeing an area from a general. Maybe you're getting a MacGuffin in one of them. You know, you could do other things nowadays. I think what they were trying to do with this, and in a lot of ways the story feels this way, is that they were trying to play it safe. Right? What's up, Dyson? They're like, okay, this is the next gen game. It's gonna be big, it's gonna be crazy. What are we gonna do for the story? They're like, keep it clean. Keep it Dragon Quest. Keep it very simple. We're already going to have fleshed out characters. We're going to have a lot more cutscenes than before. Let's keep the story as basic as possible. And I think that's the wrong call. But I feel like that's what the goal was. Is like maybe they were changing so much big shit that they wanted to dial back the story or keep it simple. Because, you know, stuff like 7 and all that is a little bit more ballsy on the story, I guess. At times. But, oh, it happens too early? Yeah, I would blame the multi-act thing a bit on that. It does happen a bit too early. The MacGuffin world romp is usually the last thing that happens in the other Dragon Quests, right? Maybe it was 2 that had that. Most of them have some kind of MacGuffin world romp. So, like the orbs. So, yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think it does happen a bit early. I had the same feeling. But it was cool you could kind of do it in slightly different orders. Yeah. I definitely think the feeling of freedom could have been a bit better. I would say the story limits that freedom a bit, so they could lax the story a little. But I think there's a lot of room to improve the story. I think the characterization was a big improvement, though. And the idea of having more story in Dragon Quest is fine. It's just, they really got to get the quality right, and I don't think it should be at the cost of exploration. 11 can be a little too hand-holdy, a little too linear at times, and I think some of that's because, one, they might just want to quality of life too hard it. Two, story, I think, might hold them down a bit. Other JKs, you have constant small goals that you have other small goals that have you deal with shit to progress. Here you go from how to get the tree to orbs. Yeah. I when I was playing that part, I felt a little weird too. So I think that was probably why. I was just like, you know, like we're really far into the game hours-wise compared to any Dragon Quest, but it felt like we're not really at that point yet, right? Like not enough big shit has happened. Like we're not going to Ganon's castle yet. And I think part of that is that they were doing the Act 2, the retread, and then in Act 3 where they retreaded again. So they probably didn't have that final climax build-up with the MacGuffins. It was just kind of like, they're going to do it anyways, but it's not at the usual point. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Coming right off of the end of this game and when I'm pretty tapped out from it, I'm curious what I'm going to think about 11 in a couple weeks. Probably of slightly higher opinion. I still have a decent opinion of it, obviously. I put it at the top, but that's more just like reasons. But like at the end of the day, I'm pretty done with it. Like if I could replay 11 or 1 right now, I'd replay 1 in a heartbeat. But like that's also because I just did 11, so it's hard to say. Because like right now, I'd be like 1's more fun than 11, but that's because I just fucking did like 180 hours of 11, so it's not really fair. Dude, dude, I don't love Dragon Quest enough that I'd be sad if it got destroyed. Bring in Nomura, dude. Bring in Nomurify this shit, dude. give me the insanity, man. Just completely. Could you imagine Nomura making a Dragon Quest? He would fucking destroy it, dude. It'd be hilarious. Alright, I'll be right back. I need to go to the bathroom and then we'll continue. I'll put builders in. So this is my mainline rating, I guess. Well, we got into Dragon Quest 11 talk. Let me double check. I mean, I had a lot of fun with. 3 is just objectively like a really clean upgrade. Over 1, it has a different focus, but it's really good, so I think it's fine. 5 is really fun. There's just not a whole lot of big issues with that for Dragon Quest. I like the story stuff going on. I like the bride ship. Oh, I think that's fine. 8, if I played the 3DS version, I'd rate higher, but I honestly feel like I'd put... It's weird, man. Like, after I finished 7, I was like, oh god, I'm glad I'm done, because it was like 100 hours, but like, in a lot of ways, I almost want to put 7 higher. I'll put it at the top of this list. Here, we could do this, yeah. We'll order them within... This is super granular, like, it's arbitrary as fuck. These games run together enough where rating them against each other is pretty hard, but... I'll do it anyways. There you go. Dude, I don't know on 2 and 9. They're both kind of whatever, dude. There's probably like a tier in between these two, honestly. At least 9 was painless. Quick Witch MC, probably 8. Or 5. 8 or 5. 8's was actually like, he felt like a traveler, and he had expressions. He looked like he was gonna have fun. 5's, he kind of had this like turban thing going on, but like, it's pretty iconic. He looks like he's ready for business, right? I don't like 11's. He looks like a serial killer, and his basic outfit makes him look really boring, not like a hero. And I don't really care for all the circlets on the other MCs, so the first few games. I like the ones that are more armored, but the ones that's just like, I'm wearing a tunic with a circlet, like 3, like Erdrick is like really, he looks cheesy. A lot of them have cervical, like obviously 4s does. 6s, it was just a guy that looked like Eric, right? It wasn't anything heroic. 7s, it just looks like a comfy little dude with a fucking like tunic on. 9, you make your own, so it doesn't really count. 2s, well, see, 1, 2, 3 don't really have like a look. 3 only looks like he does because you see him in fucking 11 more. And you can see him on the front here. Yeah, I would say 8 or 5s. 8s looks like he could go anywhere, right? 5s looks like he's a little like he's from a particular place a bit, but like 8s feels like he's a traveler. He doesn't look heroic, but the game's about traveling, so I think it's probably the best one. In terms of actual heroism, it's probably gonna be like what, 1 or 2 or something. I mean, let me see. What does 1s look like? Like 7's guy looks comfy because it is like a comfy game, so it fits really well. And that's kind of what I'm going off of. Like I could pick who looks like the best hero. Yeah, not 1. 1 looks fucking straight goofy mode, man. Erdrick's kind of whatever. What about Dragon Quest 2? Well, isn't that the same guy in 1 and 2? No. 2's looks... Is this actually what he is? This guy looks like fucking Gohan, dude. With a giant sword. Look at this motherfucker, let me like him. Or I could just... Can I copy and paste it? I hate that I can't do that. I guess I could drag it over. Let's see. Motherfucker just like you can't even see his whole fucking thing. He just looks like fucking Gohan. Like I don't like all the comparisons to DBZ that often. As it gets old, but like this one for sure, dude. He looks like Gohan with a fucking hat on, dude. He looks goofy as shit. I mean, he's different for sure, but I'm not a big fan. Yeah, Erdrick, he's classic, but I don't really like his look too much. Yeah, I would say probably 8. 5 and 7. Those are the best ones. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say 8. 7's looks comfy enough, and he changes into enough of a hero. 5 does too. He looks like, you know, he could be traveling. It looks good. It doesn't look cheesy. But 8's, his expressions, his traveling outfit, he looks too heroic. It's too perfect for the game. Not too heroic, sorry. Adventure. I'll be right back 1 sec. We'll do the last 2. They're gonna rate high. Tier list, dude. Good stuff. Well, yeah. Another thing with Dragon Quest that I'll say in regards to this tier listing, is I feel like since Dragon Quest is so similar between games, I can totally respect a lot of different takes. There's just certain, because it's more on if you like Dragon Quest or not, more than which Dragon Quest you like, I would say. If you like Dragon Quest, you're probably going to like most of the games in some capacity. It's going to be like, what parts of each game do you like the most? And you can get kind of objective with that. I think like 11 and stuff has a lot of just like outright really good things. But I think there's a lot more wiggle room just for your personal, like, you know what, maybe like episodic story's better. 7's your favorite. That's, you can't argue that. I mean, that's for sure, right? Maybe you like the simplicity, the good feeling leveling system, the puzzles. You're gonna like 1 and 2 the most. I gotcha. I think it's fair. You liked multiplayer. 9 is the best multiplayer. I mean, like, it's not like I feel like Final Fantasy where like they're really different. There's a lot of room to really wiggle with them. Even Final Fantasy, the quality is always pretty consistent. But I feel like Dragon Quest, the quality is consistent, and they're just like really similar. So it's a lot harder to do like a tier list and feel like really, like, oh, I'd recommend this to anybody. I think it really, your Dragon Quest experience is mostly going to depend on if you just like Dragon Quest. After that, it's just going to be like, what little things do you like here and there better? More than really, this is the dark horse of the series, right? Like, it's kind of like Kirby in a way. Kirby's really consistent. Doesn't always reach for the stars, but it's consistent. Although Kirby has a lot more variety, so it's not like similar in that way. Anyways, I guess there is variety in Dragon Quest in the whole thing, but mainline a little different. Maybe I should compare it to Kirby, only in quality. Anyways, Builders 1, I put it up here before. I don't know. We'll put it there. How about that? It takes the idea of like a voxel, crafting, like Minecraft type of thing, adds like an actual story to it, adds objectives, turns the resource gathering and building and all of that into more of an actual, just like kind of JRPG adventure kind of thing, and it's just fun, man. It's just fun beginning to end. It's just, there's cool side shit you can find if you want. Creating the different areas is cool. There's a lot of different areas you'll end up going to. It's just pure fun, baby. Very different game from these other ones. So, people be like, well, you don't like, this and that. And it's like, it's very different. I'm comparing how good of a game it is at its own thing. And just wasn't really bored playing that one much. And it still felt innovative. It was definitely a kind of goal system that I liked better than even just like, how Minecraft. Like Minecraft obviously has a bunch of like extra systems and depth and kind of shit for you to do in like a freestyle kind of way. But taking that and turning it into like a proper like goal-oriented story thing was really cool. I mean, I like that about Builders 1. It doesn't go super crazy. It's still, while there is variety in all the zones, it's not going insane-o. There's some fun comedy and writing. Like I said, it's cool there, but it's not like you're not gonna give me any tear jerking or anything. It's mostly just funny. It's a cool game. I had fun with it. Fun the whole way. Maybe the scope isn't as big as some people would like, like an 8 or 7 or something, but it pulls off what it wants to do exactly as well as it needed to. And then the second one, I'd probably say it's my favorite game still. I like it better in this one, dude. Builders 2 is just clean, man. It's just a good ass game. Builders 2 is an actual good fucking game, right? I think Dragon Quest 11 is a good game too, and then the rest of these are like pretty solid, right? Like none of them really bad, but like, you know, these two are actually great. Builders 2 especially. Yeah, you can. Builders 1 is just based on the first game. Builders 2 is just based on the second game. But honestly, the writing's better in the Builders games than most of the fucking Dragon Quest games. It's funnier. There's actual cool, like fun moments with monsters and shit in the second one. There's some Kino shit. The cool thing about the second game is you get a kind of freestyle kind of area. You can do whatever you want in. There's a lot more depth to the mechanics. The variety of areas is better. The NPCs, the things you'll be creating, how you'll be getting them. It's essentially just the first one, just improved in like every way. So, I think the first one's still worth playing. If you like what you see, you watch a little bit. I don't think the second one just like trumps it because it's still a story and it's still different objectives, right? Like any RPG kind of deal. I mean, the second one is better for sure in every way, but like the first one's not bad, right? But they're not a running story between them. You could just play two if you just want to play one of them. And you can play two on a lot of stuff. It might even be on Game Pass. Yeah, it just, the cute enemy and world design just works really good in the build format. They still pull a lot of the same kind of fun beats from the RPG shit, like your weapons and equipment and the kinds of enemies you run around and fight, but being able to run around it in kind of a block world and kind of progress the campaign and have a running story is just really fun. There's multiplayer shit you can do in the second one, and like I said, I spent a lot of time doing like a bunch of weird tech shit to make like roller coasters and shit in the free area in the second one, which was cool as well. There's cool shit to explore, a lot of fun side objectives. Really recommend it. Yeah, Builders 2 is on Game Pass. So really wanted to play it. It's not super long. I think Builders 2 is probably gonna be sure like 40 to 60. Let me see how long it is on, how long to beat. I don't know how accurate that was, but 55 to 80. Then it has a super high completion this time, so pretty decent length for a game like this. Just fun. It's unique. I mean, if you've played Minecraft, it'll feel a little less unique, but I mean, I've played Minecraft, it still felt unique. How it's just more, like, if you're like, man, I want to play Minecraft, but I want, like, a story, and I want, like, you know, some exploration in there, and, you know, you want goals, you know, instead of just making your own deal, you just wanted to, you know, maybe make something off a blueprint, or customize it the way you wanted. You can still make what you want in these games, but there's also goal stuff, and you go to new areas, and like I said, the stories are pretty fun in them. Like, I probably have more fun with the Builders 2 story than most of the stories in the main line. It helps that it's... Yeah, without the pig dying, yeah, exactly. So I would say, you know, it probably kills any Dragon Quest super fan for me to put Builders 2 is the best one, but for what it does, man, I mean, it's just well done, and I like it a lot. I think 11 is right there with it in terms of just the classic RPG. It's taken it to its limit. It's got its issues for sure. That's why I put it below Builders 2, because it just doesn't have a lot of big problems. Where 11 has issues for sure still, but it's still a good game. But yeah, Builders. And then it's no Rocket Slime. I gotta play Rocket Slime still. We'll update this in the future. But yeah, is Dragon Quest 1 really my second favorite mainline game? Would that be accurate? I liked it. Objectively, people might say, of course, like 8 or 5 or something, but I really liked the simplicity of it and the puzzle nature. It felt novel to now. You know, like Fasta said, I mean, they get more bloated and bloated as we go. Everything's longer, everything has more shit. It's kind of cool just to, it's a 10 fucking to 20 hour game that's just simple. You're a single dude. Every upgrade, every level feels big. You gotta write down notes, figure out where to go. Feels like a proper adventure. Yeah, it's got some age shit, but I think it's clean. I mean, if you can get past, you know, whatever misconceptions you have about ancient stuff, I mean, it's just a good time. And you know what? It's gonna take you 10 hours instead of 180 hours, which is pretty cool, man. I think there's something to say about how good it is when I put 2 at the bottom, right? Which is like came out right after it, so I think it pulls off what it's trying to do well. Where 2 kind of fumbles in a bit, even though it's a very similar game. Yeah, like I could play Builders 2 again. Like I liked it a lot. I wish they would make another Builders 2 or Builders 3. Sorry, another Builders game. They'd make a Builders 3. You could just make another 2 also, I guess, but you could just update it and I'll play it again, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. No, I'd recommend Builder, for sure. I definitely recommend, so I guess overall, I don't know if anybody has any big takes on the series. You don't have to have played them all, I guess, have an opinion. I don't know if anybody's like, oh, I want to try out some story, let's say some Minecraft, some Dragon Quest. Or if, you know, you want to try out some of these, or if you guys have played some, what you think. We had Fasto post his tier list, but, yeah, growing pains. Yeah, I think that's part of it. And that's one of my big complaints about too, is that they upped the scale, like I said, and just added more, but the underlying structure never really changed to facilitate it. Like I said, the menu work, a lot of the runbacks, it's just a lot more annoying, where 1 was just very tight. I think maybe if I played 2 first, I wouldn't feel so bad about it, but 1's such a tight game that 2 feels like a mess because of it. Or 3 cleans it back up and refocuses into something else. But yeah, so overall, I say it's a series. Dragon Quest is solid. I've a million times likened it to, or compared it to, it's like the fast food of JRPGs. I think that's a little, maybe sounds mean because you might think of that in a different way. Maybe the food analogy is not good there. Because usually fast food is pretty trashy. It's like a mid-tier fast food placement, like an expensive one. You know, it's tasty, it's comfortable. You don't have to fucking go make anything. You know, it might be a bit much of an investment. Like these are a bit, you know, they take some time. You know, that kind of food takes money or something. But like, you don't really regret it. But you're not gonna go tell anybody about it. You know, they're not. It's not pushing, you know, some Michelin stars or some shit. They're just like, okay. Maybe food. I always feel bad doing a food analogy because there's so many meme ones. Maybe we should compare it to something else. I've compared it to something else at some point. Point is, they're basic. They're fine. They pride themselves on tradition, on not shaking up the formula too hard. But I still think they're respectable because they do find ways to upgrade what they can in a way that still makes each game feel complete and not like a half-assed asset flip or lazy installment like Pokemon. So I always compare it to Pokemon because I think Pokemon is like the reverse, like Dragon Quest. Right? Dragon Quest, steady, same kind of, you know, core principles, similar combat, same visual style in most of the games, but they'll up the presentation, change how the story's structured, because none of those things were ever truly rooted down throughout the series, except maybe that there's a big dark evil guy at the end, right? The Dark Lord or some shit. So the simplicity of the stories is always similar, but how they structure, you know, different, you know, multiple playable characters, a single guy, episodic stories, no story, you know, more character work and more cutscenes like 11. Like they'll mix it up, but like it's always got that same kind of comfy feeling of exploration to greater and lesser extents. It's always got that same combat. Like even in 11, man, once they finally have upgraded it to probably what the best it can be until they actually shake up the damn combat, which is probably why they're shaking up in the next game, because it's like, well, what are you gonna do now? It's still the same fucking pool of moves, you just have more of them and more freedom and more information to work with to make it more fun. They experiment a little bit in 11, but not a whole lot, and a lot of it's late game. So they upgrade where they can, right? The music gets bigger. Well, I mean, they fucked it up in 11, but the visuals get better, more content, better quality of life. They add in a couple systems here, like, you know, we're going to add crafting. We're going to add maybe multiplayer in this one game. They'll have each game have a little bit of a gimmick, but they'll pull them off well, and they'll bring them back and include them like talent trees if they work out well, and then expand on them. Pokemon doesn't do that. They make a gimmick, it sucks. Even if it doesn't suck, they abandon it anyways, and then they put the same gimmick in with a different name. So I think, you know, they give you a lot of time, a lot of value. There's a lot of hours out of these. And they always try to improve on that kind of stuff. Including more side content. They upgrade where they can, and I think it's respectable. I think it's cool, commendable. How just steady they've stayed, and how the quality has stayed relatively good. I think it never punches very high above its weight. It's not creative. It's not, you know, innovative. You know, they're not trying anything cool with art. You know, the music feels the same every time. Like, they're never really doing more. They're not pushing the medium. You could say 11 pushes it a bit because of sheer content and just overall polish. But, they're made for a certain fan, and they're made well for that specific fan. It's a double-edged sword. I would rather have more games, I guess, that played it safe and like were just quality than like, well, that's not true. Yeah, I think it's, so there's a lot of playing it safe nowadays in AAA, and I don't think that's commendable, but at least I would prefer something that plays it safe but does it like well, of course, right? Like, I can respect Dragon Quest for doing it, because I think they've upgraded in what ways they need to, and there's still some charm and some soul in the damn thing. But it's something like an Assassin's Creed or a Pokemon, you know, it feels like they don't have a vision. They're not upgrading where they could be. They're not like trying to make a better game while retaining what people like. They're just making another game, whether it's for money or just because they don't have any fucking ideas, right? And I think that's where Dragon Quest is different. It's not that I wouldn't prefer Dragon Quest to get more creative, but I think the landscape of games is big enough where you can have a series like this that just plays it safe, but plays it well. And then there's other games out there like Final Fantasy or something, you want to get a little bit more experimental. And obviously there's way more other games out there if you want to get really interesting. I prefer the more interesting stuff, but I like Dragon Quest still, and I respect it. It's easy to play. It's rare I would play like 3 of the same series back to back in a JRPG. I did it multiple times with Dragon Quest. They're just comfy. They're just simple. You know what you're getting into. The exploration's solid. It does unique things still, like how it handles some of its items and shit. Some of its old games, the puzzle stuff. Obviously, the enemy design, the visuals has always been really good. I think that's one of the most important things in Dragon Quest. It gives it the comfy atmosphere. It gives it a lot of charm. Characters, the monsters, and all that. Yeah, overall, pretty solid series. It'd be hard to recommend a lot of them, but not because they're bad, just because they're made for a particular person. And you'd have to find out if you're really that kind of person or not. You know, I like a lot of different shit, so I'm of course gonna probably like them to a certain extent. But I just, I can't fault it, is what I'm trying to say. I can't fault it for not punching higher. Yeah, this isn't played safe because they're lazy with money, exactly. And that's what I mean. It's like, I can't fault the series for what it is. I can fault Pokemon, I can fault like an Assassin's Creed, I can fault all those. There's a real line there, yeah, on like what's wrong with those and why them staying the same is like a bad thing. This is a very clear intent, a very clear line of quality and polish. It's just that intent, that thing they're polishing is like, it's not a diamond, it's just like a little hunk of silver or something, right? But it's like, it's a really nice looking hunk of silver, right? it's really well done. I really respect it as a series, yeah. It just never gets like godly, right? Like, I don't know many people be like, you know, other than maybe with 11, who are like, Dragon Quest. It's like, this Dragon Quest game is my favorite game ever. That's like, I think it's fine to have that opinion. Maybe that comfort is like a huge deal to you. Maybe you have nostalgia. Maybe there's just, you know, the exploration is really awesome too, because I think that is something that Dragon Quest does compared to other traditional RPGs a little better. But I think by and large, it's just kind of a comfort food RPG series. I just remind you guys this is their favorite series and I respect it. I respect it. I respect it for sure. I think if everybody just liked Dragon Quest though, I mean that goes for anything, but like the landscape of like if everybody's favorite series was just Dragon Quest, it probably wouldn't be good for games. Or it feels like Final Fantasy or something like, yeah, there's a bit more variance there, you know, there could still be some cool stuff, right? I think Dragon Quest is too samey at the end of the day compared to a lot of other series, but I respect it for doing it, and it has a clear line of quality and intent that I think is cool. Yeah. It's a weird one to say. I guess there's nothing wrong with having it as your favorite. I mean, nothing wrong with having anything as your favorite. I mean, there might be some series where you're like, what? I think it's fine, because these games do have a level of quality to them. You know, maybe the art style, and like I said, the exploration's just really big to you. Maybe especially the art style. You can't really get this art style anywhere else. Even Chrono Trigger is same guy, but it's like, you know, very different look though. Yeah, I would say, yeah, solid. Overall take on the series is it's solid comfort food with very respectable polish and intent. But I don't think it punches above its weight very well. It's not as creative as I'd like. I think while it doesn't stay rooted to tradition to a fault like Pokemon, there are elements of it where it kind of does. I would say stuff like the gameplay really could use a shake-up. That gets a little old. What other parts about there's not a whole lot of parts when it comes to Dragon Quest being traditional that I think are like bad. Like with Pokemon, you can name off a million things why they should be changing shit, where they could improve, and they're not because of tradition or because they're just lazy or incompetent. But like with Dragon Quest, it's like they try to upgrade where they can, and the tradition that's more bad is like gameplay, story, not really being as ballsy as it should, maybe at times. Other than that, they try to upgrade where they can. It's just the only like the bigger problem with tradition is a bit more subjective in that, you know, you might just not want the same shit, or you might not like the simplicity of it that much. Like they upgrade where they should. I don't know. It's the same base since Dragon Quest 1 though. It's a weird one to chit chat about, because it flies in the face of so many things you'd consider wrong about a game series, right? Like, you know, you'd be like, oh, if they make the same game every time, it's a horrible series, right? And I mean, Dragon Quest, in a lot of ways, is the same shit every time. But like, I think it's a good example, a good distinction to make. Good to use Dragon Quest as an example of being okay to do the same shit every time if you just figure out how to hone the game design better and better every time and upgrade where you can to keep the spirit while not keeping it exactly the same. And I think that's the big difference, like we were just talking about. I think that's where the other series like Pokemon just people don't get that. It's a nuanced thing, I guess. On the surface, it's just the same shit. And it's like, I'll never call the Dragon Quest series great. I don't even know if I just say good. I mean, they're solid. Solid feels like the best, like, descriptor. There's great games in Dragon Quest. Builders 2. I'd say 11 is... maybe objectively great. On a personal level, I'd say it's good. I don't know. It's very, very arbitrary. Dragon Quest 11 was solid. I liked it. It was fun, but like it ain't speaking to me like some other JRPGs are, man. Right? But that's a lot more personal, probably. I've played just a lot of games now too. So something that does the basics really well. When I've played the basics a million times, it's like, okay, you know, whatever. It's also the 11th game I played. I expected being the favorite series more than one of them being their favorite game. I think that's fair. Because I think it's more respectable as a series than any individual entry is, as like compared to the whole of video games. There's not many other series you can name that have this many mainline installments that are very steady on the quality while still making upgrades. I think that's really admirable, and I can see why you might like it a lot. And there might be, like I said, elements about the art and the exploration you really like, and you get that every time. Maybe they expand on it a little bit or mix it up just enough. Or I could see as the whole, you might like it. I think any individual one, though, except maybe like Builders 2, or if you haven't played a lot of JRPGs, maybe 11, I could respect as it being your favorite game ever. I think those are good enough where you maybe could say it. I mean, I wouldn't say it, but like, you could. And I'd be like, alright. I think anything else, I'd be like, 5's your favorite game ever? I'd be like, alright, you know, okay. But like, yeah. Like, I don't know about that, man, but, you know, alright. What makes your favorite game is super subjective. I mean, it's like, I respect anybody's opinion to have whatever favorite they want, but, you know, I might ask why or something. I want to talk about it. I feel like 8's nostalgia, man. This goes on YouTube. It's gonna be like just dislike city, man. 'Cause 8's like the baby, man, of like this fucking series, dude. Especially in the West. It's like the first one that anybody probably bothered playing. And it has like a 3DS remake that makes it way better. But like I said, PS2 version. And 8 was big on the PS2 as well. So I just think that one. If you come in here and you're like, yeah, the PS2 version is like the best game ever played. Plays more games. If you say the 3DS version, maybe I respect it more. Anywho, we're probably gonna switch gears here. If you guys got anything else you want to say about Dragon Quest, by all means. I know it's kind of a slipshod, scattershot, fucking discussion there of the series, but the games run together a lot. Like I said, I was having, you know, even though I researched the games a little bit more again last night, because I forgot some shit, I still was forgetting some distinctions that 3 had, and I don't remember a shitload of areas in a lot of the games. They run together, they're comfy, they're in one ear out the other a lot of the time kind of thing, but they never imprint on your memory very well. Only a few, and a lot of it is just basic design changes, like how they handle story or visuals and stuff, right? That you're gonna really remember more than every individual event. There's just not enough. They're not spicy enough. They're not creative enough. either it's story or visuals or anything, to really stay in your memory super hard. So a tier list like this, you know, I'd be willing to mix them around a bit. You know, maybe I'm off base a little bit here and there, and obviously, you know, I'd be willing to respect almost any opinion on a tier list in this series. There might, like I said, it's more if you like Dragon Quest than really which ones are not worth playing. If you just like one of these, you'll probably like most of them. Maybe like the 2 might be a little weird, or you might find 9 kind of weak because, you know, you can't do multiplayer anymore. But if you really like any of these, you're probably gonna like all of them to a certain extent. So it's harder to do a tier list because they are all very similar. Like, I could feel confident saying that because they're really samey. Like, I don't think you're gonna have a huge difference of opinion on it. But yeah, I think that's it. So I guess we'll move to Astronite. That's what I was gonna do next. Let me save this. Yeah, it's over though. I don't feel like wistful or anything, or sad. I'm like, well, we're done with Dragon Quest. I'm good on taking a break from Dragon Quest at this point. We had a good run. Like I said, I did a lot of these in a row at some points. That was a good time. But yeah, we're done with Dragon Quest for another week. I'll play Dragon Quest Treasures, maybe. If it's good, I'll play it. Yep, big break from Dragon Quest, the whole week, maybe. We'll see. Which Dragon Quest Treasures is more of like a Pokemon monster adventure kind of game, I think. We'll play Rocket Slime, but I'm not gonna be like, you know, we got this big project to kind of finish. We'll just, yeah, I'm just gonna play Rocket Slime, you know, today because it's short or something. But we're done with the main line. Honestly, the side games seem more interesting, and I've rated most of the side games that I played, the 2, better than most of the series, if that tells you anything. So, where's my tier list folder? Here it is. Okay. But yeah, we'll see. If Dragon Quest Treasures is not supposed to be good, I won't mess with it. I think it's an offshoot, like I said, of Dragon Quest Monsters, and I want to play those at some point, but I want to play the PS1 versions. Thing with those games is they're probably just like Dragon Quest, but you use monsters with the same moves than actually, you know, instead of a party member. So they're all on the Game Boy until a couple 3DS elements, I think. So, if they release the fan translation at some point, I would be willing to maybe do those, but the Game Boy ones look a little too dated, man. And if the gameplay ain't gonna be crazy, I'd at least like to have a little something visually and musically to enjoy. If there wasn't a version of those on the PS1, I wouldn't care. But, the Mystery Dungeon games, hey, maybe the Swords game. I don't know. Maybe I'd play. I would have to be completionist to want to do Swords. I'm looking through some right now. Heroes, like I said. Look, man, I don't have a whole lot of nostalgia for a game series I just played. A 3D remake of Monsters. Dragon Quest Monsters. There's a PS1 remake. That's the one I wanted to play. But I don't know if the other ones have a remake. Maybe. There's Dragon Quest Monsters, Dragon Quest Monsters 2, which are both Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Dragon Quest Monsters 1 plus 2, which is the PS1 remake, I think. Caravan Heart, the Japan only Game Boy Advanced. Joker, which is the 4th installment. That's online play. It doesn't say anything about it being a remake. Joker 2. Obviously, it's just a sequel to that. Terry's Wonderland. Iru and Luca's Marvelous Mysterious Key. Super Light. I don't know what these are. I can't even find a good fucking list. Let me go to the Dragon Quest .org. Let me see what Superlight is. The Terry one. It's not even on the .org. What is Superlight? Oh, it's an Android game. Great. And the Joker 3 was the last one. Till maybe Treasures. Let me look it up. Dragon Quest 1 remake. I'll just do that. Dragon. Oh, yeah, I just put Dragon Quest 1. Dragon Quest Monsters 1 remake. There are 2 remakes of Dragon Quest 1 Monsters. I'm in a Reddit thread right now. Terry's Wonderland on the 3DS, and then a remake